Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to use a combination of dryer lint and pine bedding. The pine bedding is basically what you get from the pet section at Walmart or the pet store. You put it in the bottom of your hamster cage. So we found through experience and practice and trial and error that the dryer lint certainly lights up much quicker and easier than the pine bedding. The pine bedding burns well, but if you have too much of it piled up, it's not really going to produce a great flame unless you kind of move it around a little bit. But the idea right now is we're going to try to get this started, make it easier for ourselves by using the dryer lint to initially ignite and then use that to help start the pine bedding. And then we can add other small tender and I would, in this particular situation, I might even use some of my popsicle sticks that I use in my fire kit, or just small dry branches. The idea though is we want to create an initial flame, get that heat going, and then even if something, we always start small, even if something might be a little bit wet, we've generated enough heat to dry it out quickly and go ahead and ignite that as well. So we're going to go ahead and try igniting the dryer lint, and then we'll start using that to ignite the pine bedding. Let's turn it around here. Here we go. So we got the dryer lint going, and then we start adding the pine bedding to it, and voila, there you go, we have a fire. Now be careful, I'm using a cookie sheet to do this on. I don't want to get too close because I don't want to burn my beard off. And basically what this does is the dryer lint started the initial flame, and then we introduced the pine bedding into the fire. Again, to keep this burning well, I'm kind of stirring it up a little bit. Now it burns off quickly, so you're going to want to have some other tinder and some other combustible materials on here to help get your fire going, because this is not going to stay lit for very long. But in order to keep this pine bedding lit, you need to kind of move it around a little bit, otherwise it'll smother itself out. So just kind of moving it around, letting it get oxygen, it'll increase the longevity of that flame. And again, having this underneath some other dry tinder, popsicle sticks, other grass, other types of combustible materials, just working that. And then you can also turn your dryer lint over and it will continue to burn if it hasn't already burned completely out. What you're doing, what you're seeing here, some of the sparking is some of the magnesium that was already just kind of laying around on here from earlier experimentation. Certainly kind of liven things up a little bit. But again, we're trying to extend the life of the flame, and you'll see I'm having to move it around a little bit so it doesn't quite burn out. And we'll go outside and use the popsicle sticks. I use those as kind of my initial little miniature campfire. Then I can introduce limbs and branches and other dry things. Sometimes they're wet, so I want to create some heat to dry them off real quick and get them ignited. So that's using and experimenting with using dryer lint in conjunction with the pine bedding. I've found that sometimes I can light the pine bedding, with a couple of strikes of my ferro rod, and sometimes it's just stubborn and it's just not catching. And so I use the dryer lint to make it easier to get that started. Now, obviously, in any situation, there's some things that you need to have that I'm going to recommend. Obviously, a Bic lighter. They say they recommend orange Bic lighters, which I agree, if you have them. Also, these are amazing. These are great in a lot of different situations. Weather, these are good for lighting cigars, but they're also good for starting fires. So, see if I have some of this on here, and it's that easy. Just a torch, it lights up. I keep several of these in my kits. And they're refillable, but I think that this is Eagle Torch, and I like this because it's flip down cap. There's some others that have a little chain on them, and I struggle getting them off. I just end up breaking the lighters. So I like the flip down. Bam, it's good. Another thing to have that I think is extremely important. Stoke our little campfire here on my desk. Are storm-proof matches. These are incredible. They're not very expensive. You can get them from Walmart. And we'll unbox them here for you. They come sealed up in plastic, and they actually have some striker strips. So you need to be aware that you have your striker strips in here to strike these. And you can see they're a little different than regular matches. I'm not even, you know what a match looks like when you light it, so I'm not going to waste any of these. Having these are extremely important. Folks, yeah, using a Ferro Rod is pretty cool and it's pretty sexy when it comes to, wilderness survival. But if you don't have to use this, then don't. Use matches, use a lighter to start your fires. We're not trying to make it harder for ourselves. What we're trying to do is have options. If your matches are wet, use a lighter. If your lighter's dead or broke, use your Ferro Rod. And there's other ways to start fires as well. So, and I keep everything in a waterproof container with a lid, a 4-way snap-on lid. This is what I keep my fire kit in. So even if it does get water, if it's raining, this is going to keep my stuff dry. So obviously carrying a bag of dryer lint, important. Carrying a bag of pine bedding, important. I like to carry this stuff with me so I have it when I need it. Of course, I also just carry some regular matches. I want to conserve my good stuff if I can, if at all possible. I don't want to just get out there and get crazy and use up all my good resources, because I may be there for a while. Simple match. How do you start a fire? I don't know. Use a match. Works. Again, we're not trying to make things harder for ourselves. We want to use the simplest and easiest and quickest method to get our fire started. But if we don't have our matches, our lighters, or we run out, we've got more primitive ways of starting the fire. We've got our Ferro Rod. There's other ways like flint and steel. There's magnifying glass. Those are things that we'll also explore and work on as well. But we don't have to be primitive if we don't have to. If I can simply use a lighter to start my fire in an emergency wilderness situation, that's what I'm going to do. This is a Gray Bearded Ninja. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we're just exploring together, working on these things, building our skills up. And I would encourage you to practice these things and go outside, make you a little stone fire pit in your yard so you can do these things safely. I don't recommend that you do them on your desk in your office like I'm doing. I am using a cookie sheet and I am being very careful. However, the best way to do this and practice this is outdoors, because that's where you're going to be lighting fires. We'll see you.